Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones. This evening's topic is African Americans need to appreciate our past before we can move on to the future. African Americans need to appreciate our past before we can move on to the future. Now, I'm bringing this topic to you because the younger generation has never had to go through real racism like our forefathers did. Now, of course, there have been movies out that depict our accomplishments and our failures. We had Hidden Figures, we've had Roots, and we've had other programs that talk about black people. Hidden Colors, Tariq Nasheed did that documentary. I hope everybody watches it. But moving on with this topic, I have to ask a question. How is it African American people during the days of Jim Crow, we were able to make it? We had Black Wall Street, inventors who had invented open heart surgery, the elevator, the stoplight, the cotton gin. Well, here's the answer to that question. We appreciated each other back then. We were close-knit. In fact, one item that bonded us together was music. Although I don't agree with everything that Christianity has stood for with black people, it's also been a source of our survival. The gospel hymns that we sing. We've had great singers such as Billie Holiday, Mahalia Jackson. We've had the great debaters. You've seen that movie with Denzel Washington. Historically black colleges and universities. But if you look at Black America now, it's even worse. It's worse because a couple things have happened. Of course, white supremacy has always been there. The main culprit of where we are today is white feminism. What the white feminists did, and they're still using it to their advantage, they took a civil rights movement that featured Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Rosa Parks, and they've used it to their advantage. In fact, they bamboozled our African American sisters into joining their movement so they can get the numbers. But when something happens in our community, you don't hear the feminists. In fact, when you hear Ashley Judd, Madonna, and these other white feminist women talk about oppression, then we already know that the whole feminist movement is a trick itself. They're not looking for freedom. What they're looking for is superiority. Because the very men to whom they complain about, they go home and sleep with at night. Because these men are providing them with a lifestyle that black Americans, particularly our men, we haven't been able to provide for our women. There's a little bit to blame on both black men and women of today. But the main culprit is lack of education, lack of family. When you grow up in households that neither parent is educated, when neither parent has the capacity enough to take care of themselves, you have dysfunction. But moving on. When it comes to any Black history issue, we talk about the good leaders, but we fail to talk about some of the bad people within our own community who sold us as slaves to the white man, not just here, but so many Latin American countries as well. This is why you have a mixture of Puerto Ricans, Cubans, all have an African descent, Dominicans. But I want us as African Americans to be proud of who we are. This is Black History Month, and it should go well beyond Black History Month for us to see that as a people, we have problems getting along. The biggest problem is we don't like each other. And we don't appreciate what our grandmothers and our mothers really did for us, and some of us don't even understand it. Our past is what has made us. Now I'll give you an issue that I'm still stuck on. The mistake that we made as Black Americans during the Civil Rights era is we opted for integration instead of equality. For African Americans, it would have been better if we had remained segregated because we had our own schools, our own infrastructure. We were able to police ourselves, no government, and we did it without Big Daddy government funneling our women with welfare, child support, Section 8, and we took more pride. We worked. Now, you have the younger generation who really doesn't care about the past. Why? Because they're living for the day. And I always tell you that your past depicts your future. And being the person that I am, when I do videos, particularly with Black History Month, I make sure I do a lot of reading and research so I can educate people on how to understand the real world. Certainly, we've had a lot of injustice out here. And a bad event that took place, some of the youngins don't understand this, is the Emmett Till story. But it continues to happen to Black men especially. Emmett Till was a 14-year-old boy from Chicago. He went down to Mississippi. Emmett Till was mutilated, was castrated, and he was shot because he, at that time, whistled at a white woman, somebody's wife. Now, all this wasn't true because her name was Carolyn Dunn. She came out and said that it was all a lie. So this 14-year-old boy had his life taken from him while she got to live her life. And her husband and her brother-in-law got a chance to live their lives. And nobody's been convicted for it. This is the unjust that we had to go through in the past. This is the unjust that we have to go through now. I'm bringing these events up because we need to appreciate who we are. Every time we talk about each other, we always talk about each other in a negative light. Black people, we're beautiful people. We are genetically superior than white people. We are. This is why all the laws are made against us. Let's take a look at standardized testing. The IQ tests, they weren't made for us. They were made by white men to see how smart they were. See, even during the days we would be killed if we had any sort of education, we were able to invent the telephone. Yes, black man invented the telephone before Alexander Graham Bell did. The phonograph, the refrigerator, the wash machine, open heart surgery, the traffic signal, the computer. When we go back and actually read this information, it should give us an idea of how and why our identity was stolen from us as black people. My whole point on this topic is there are some parts of history that I didn't know about. I didn't even know that Indians had us in slavery. Now, when we talk about white people, all white people weren't bad. Because during the Underground Railroad, and believe it or not, there were more than just the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad, and you had white people who assisted black people in the Underground Railroad to escape the freedom. I did a video on this yesterday, and I want to tell you there were some black slave owners, not just Anthony Johnson, but he's the one that has been documented. We have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations as black people. And what I want to express to you all is we have to continue to move forward. Now, there's some of us who benefit off of white supremacy, particularly some of the feminists. But if you love who you are as black people, you're going to be mindful that we need to gain our identity back. And we need to do it without being ashamed. First of all, let me give you all a bit of advice as African American people during Black History Month. First, and this starts in the realm of black men, because this is one thing that we do not do at all with each other. We have to learn how to disagree. And when it comes to politics, we can't ever listen to our family, because a number of us have been indoctrinated from our family to vote Democrat. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, but we need to understand politics, how the system works. But we need to look at those who came before us, the Marcus Garveys, the Huey Newtons, the Frederick Douglasses, the Booker T. Washingtons. See, we forget about all those brothers and sisters who came before us because today's generation just isn't taught. You got to realize your schools are run by the NEA, the National Education Association. It's a big union, a teachers union. And in order for us to understand black history, we are going to have to educate the younger generation. And some of us who are in the Generation X, the baby boomer generation, I will tell you, we haven't done a very good job either, particularly the baby boomers, because what happened during that generation, the baby boomers passed all of their dirt to my generation, Generation X. Now, we are doing a little better than the baby boomers, but not much. Because if you look at all the generations going from X to Y, you have more dysfunction, no family. In fact, what African Americans today have to understand is black men and black women weren't on any patriarchal or matriarchal, or I'm going to say competition for leading the household. The man led his household. Yes, the African American did go to work as well, but they appreciated one another. Today, black women who were baby boomers jumped on board with Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem, thinking that they were going to do better with white feminism. And this is a part of history that's affected black men and black women today. And if you look at it right now, you have a number of us who are on YouTube fighting one another. Fighting one another over what? Nonsense. But let me put some objectivity on it. We're fighting because we're misinformed. See, when you're in this white man's system and he wants you to do it his way, he's going to keep you from understanding your identity. He's going to tell you you should swirl, because swirling is much better for you than being with your own. You got to listen to that. The white man's system creates a divide and conquer, and that's where we are as African American women and men. This is why we don't have any knowledge of our history. We've allowed Eurocentric measures to define us, i.e., you have a number of black men and women. And black men did it too. We talk about the black women getting weave. Well, you know, black men were getting conks, and they were utilizing do-rags and processing their hair as well back in the early 60s. You go back and look at some of the singers like Jackie Wilson and Smokey Robinson. Black women have done the same thing. You also have to look at the laws. The laws weren't favorable to black people. We are 3/5 of a person. 3/5 of a person. How do you come up with that figure? But see, when you're not educated, and when religion is used as a measure to control how you think, this is what happens. We have taken the bait. We've been bamboozled. And at the end of the day, I don't see it getting any better. And I'm putting out this video as a positive measure for Black History Month. Black History Month, again, used to be called African Negro Month. This is a time that we should cherish who we are. We should cherish who we are basically every day. But this is a month that we need to all develop a sense of knowledge who we are. We should be able to talk with one another. You had organizations come into play. to help black people, black fraternities and sororities, your HBCUs. In fact, some of your HBCUs now are utilizing affirmative action as well. Did you know that? You have a number of Caucasian men and women who are going to HBCUs. Your teachers at HBCUs, and I know I attended an HBCU, Virginia Union University in Richmond, Virginia. Well, the HBCU had Caucasian teachers. And some of them were trying to teach black history. They didn't know about it themselves. They didn't know about chattel slavery. And what chattel slavery was, and I'll give Caucasian people this piece of reverence, because it was the Caucasian people, some of them, who actually put it in to slavery. Now, what chattel slavery is, again, and I put it in my video last night, it is when black men and black women were used for property. You had breeding grounds, particularly in Salisbury, Maryland. They would blindfold the black men and black women, even if they were family members, for them to breed. And what they did when they bred children, they sold children. And you have to understand, for slavery, or from slavery, black men and black women were torn apart. So this isn't a new phenomenon of what you are dealing with today. It's always happened. But some of us are afraid to talk about it. But in the long run, if you appreciate all of the good and bad of what happened to us, you're going to be much better to understand yourself as a black person. And I want you to understand this. Black does not mean death or hell. See, we've gotten accustomed to, particularly the Christian mantra, talks about white Jesus. Well, we already know that Jesus was not white. Jesus was a Hebrew. He was black. You had the Moors. Let me tell you what else happened. If you look at symbols and writing and engineering, and I'm a civil engineer, well, it was the Egyptians who built those pyramids, and guess what? Those pyramids are still standing. And those pyramids have been around longer than some of the infrastructure that was built here in America 100, 150 years ago. Now, those engineers then, they utilized mathematics, calculus. Calculus was started by Archimedes back in 212 BC. Why did he invent calculus? Because you needed to find an area under a curve, the rate of change, known as a derivative. This is what great minds do, and black people have had some great minds. But we haven't been able to utilize our great minds as of late, because if we have different points of view, we call each other coons. And you know, we don't need to use that word coon, okay? That's what white folk use to try to put us down. It's a derogatory name. We are not coons because we have different beliefs. We need to have a diversity of thought. And this is that political party called the Democratic Party that has shown itself in white supremacy. Not the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party. Now, what made the Republican Party, and I'm skipping over different issues because this is an open forum about the issues that we've had to go through, that we have had to go through as black people, and the struggles. So I'm trying to educate you on some of the examples that I'm providing you so we could get a grasp. Now, did I say build a black community? Black community has been gone for the last 50 years. It'll never come back. It'll never come back because, first of all, a number of our women don't want the black community to come back. That's a fact. And they've been bamboozled into thinking because they have a job and a career, and which they're not the most educated. You have some bright minds who are African American women, but see, to be educated is you can utilize your tool and apply it to the real world. You understand your role. That's the problem. You don't live in this delusional world, and that's what white supremacy has taught all African Americans. It's for us to live in this delusional world, and once we are at each other's throat, white supremacy could go ahead and continue to be integrated. Keeps us ignorant. And it's one thing that I don't want to be is ignorant. Because my value is just as good, or if not better, than a Caucasian person. That's my value. And that's a thing that we have to understand as black people. We must understand our value. We must have morals. We must take history and talk about it. We don't want to talk about it because some of what went on in history was very shameful. It was. But if we don't talk about it, how are we ever going to know? Because we need a point to start from. That's why I like to know my family tree. As a light-skinned person, I like to know who infiltrated my ancestors. See, knowledge is power. And understanding all of the horrific times as well as the good times. Now let me skip over to Black Wall Street. Because Black Wall Street wasn't the only area that black people had. There was Rosewood, and that was also destroyed. And that was destroyed by white men because white women went again. A couple of them said that black men raped them. So that whole town was torn up. Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was destroyed by the government. Oh, dropped the Molotov cocktails on an area that had built over 600 businesses. We had our own banks, schools. We had our own education system. That's what we had. Now, will that ever come back? No, it won't come back. And I'm just going to be realistic with it. And the reason why it won't come back is because we are not conducive with each other anymore. In other words, we don't stand hand in hand with each other anymore. We're busy tearing each other down. And let me change the wording on that. I shouldn't say conducive. We don't collaborate with one another. We forget the events that took place that made us who we are. Why? Because we've all supported white supremacy. We don't want to say it, but we all have. And we've allowed white supremacy to override our thinking. And at the end of the day, when we wake up, certainly we're not working for free, but I still believe we're still slaving. Yep, I believe we are slaving. When you work for a wage, you're slaving. And as African Americans, we should learn from some of the African Americans who came before us. Again, understanding that business makes an economy. What we've done, we've been worker bees. That's the problem. Lyndon B. Johnson in his Great Society said that he's going to have niggas voting Democrat for the next 200 years. He's been right, because 96% of black people have always voted Democrat. And the Democrats have done nothing for black people. And these are points that none of us understand. But I want everybody to understand this. When it comes to black history, we need to be a little more knowledgeable. Be less lazy intellectually. Because at the end of the day, we need to know who we are. And that's it for this commentary, the 411 Talk Zone radio show this evening, Friday, February 3rd, 2016. You can tune into the 401 Talk Zone radio show every Monday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. Guest calling number is 215-383-5785. And if you like my videos, please share and subscribe to the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube, so I can continue to give you quality information, educational purposes from a professional, mature perspective. Now, on this channel, I don't engage in debates or controversial issues, nor do I participate in drama or unnecessary bickering. I just promote education. So if you have a business or a topic, please email me at lej6521@gmail.com. And also, if you have a comment, leave it in the comment section under the video. Search your comments are pithy, no bloviating, pettifogging, or filibustering. If you wish to opine, that's it for this video. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Remember, please be gentle and respectful to each other, and have a wonderful and blessed evening. Good night.